So today we are going to be talking to you guys about student learning objectives, or student learning outcomes, sorry. So I'll turn it over to Caitlin and she will talk to you guys more.
So when we were researching student learning outcomes, we basically found out that they're the same thing as objectives, which I think we all know what objectives are in our lesson plans. And they're statements that define what the student will know or be able to do after a lesson or course. So basically what you're going to teach them and what they should take away from the lesson. And it's not something that you hope they'll get at the end of it, it's something that they should take away. SLOs, which is the abbreviation we use for student learning outcomes, are usually conveyed as knowledge, skills, attitudes, or values. So how can you write a student learning outcome, or what are some of the criteria you should follow? You should have a small number of high priority outcomes. So you shouldn't have a lot of student learning outcomes for them, because that could just get really confusing and you might not be able to cover all of them, or they might think that some are less important than others when really all student learning outcomes are very important. You should put SLOs in broad categories but make the outcomes specific. So it should be a broad category like this is one for math or this is one for English, but make them specific so the student knows exactly what they need to be learning and what they need to be taking away from the lesson. And there's two parts to a student learning outcome, which is an action verb, so that would be like create or understand or evaluate, and the content area, so basically the subject or what exactly you're teaching them. And in the next slide we have examples, and I'm going to have you guys identify some parts. So an example of a student learning outcome would be, a lot of them will start with something along the lines of, by the end of this course, students will be able to identify what the parts of a flower are. So who can tell me what the verb is in this student learning outcome? Yeah.
Identify?
Yeah, so the students are going to identify, and then what would the content be? I'll call on someone if no one raises their hand. Yeah.
Parts of a flower.
Parts of a flower. So they're going to identify, which is the verb, and the parts of a flower, which is the content. Another one we have is, by the end of this course, students will be able to outline how a flower grows. Who can tell me the verb in this student learning outcome?
Outline.
Outline, and what's the content? Hannah.
A flower's growth.
Yep, how the flower grows. By the end of this course, students will be able to distinguish between a female and a male flower. What's the verb?
Distinguish.
Distinguish, very good. And the content?
Between a female and male.
Yeah, the differences between a female and male flower. I'll turn it over to you.
Alright, so when you're creating a student learning outcome, it's important to keep in mind SMART, to keep your student learning outcomes SMART. Have you guys heard this used before when making goals? I know they did it a lot in freshman dorms, so they're like, make your semester goals SMART. It means to make it specific, make it measurable, make it attainable, and results focused and time focused. And so when we apply this to student learning outcomes, we say that when you're keeping them specific, you want your student learning outcome to stay on track. You want your student to stay on track. And so the whole point of the outcome is for the student to stay on track with what they are learning. And then to keep it measurable, it's important to collect data to monitor the student's progress to make sure that they are on track to meet that goal. And then to make sure it's attainable, this also applies for every student, but especially within special ed, it's important to keep in mind to keep the student learning outcomes attainable so that it's based on their educational experience and what they can accomplish in the classroom. And then results focused is the importance of outcomes, so keeping the outcome, the main idea, the main thing in mind when working with the student. And then to keep it time focused, you want to stay goal oriented. This wraps everything up in keeping the whole student learning outcome. It's all about the outcome of what the student learns. And even if the student doesn't quite reach the original outcome, it's also important to mark the outcome that they did reach by the end of their time, keeping it within the time focus. So do you guys have any examples of a SMART goal? It could be one for a classroom with a student, or it could be one that you have in your personal life. Yeah?
I was gonna every day, like when I finish class, my goal is to get an hour of just of reading with the material for the entire semester. I don't know how that would apply to the SMART goal, but I was gonna do it for like an hour every semester. Every day I was gonna study an hour.
Yeah, that's a good goal. That's specific because you're keeping it within an hour. You're keeping it to the reading. It's measurable because it's for class or different, or not even, it's just reading in
Yeah.
general. It's attainable because you know you can fit it in your schedule. Results focused because it's something you want to accomplish. And it's time focused because you have a timeline that you want to keep. Yeah, thank you for sharing. So when you are also creating student learning outcomes, it's important to follow these 4 questions. The first one is, what do you want the student to be able to do? The second, what knowledge, skill, or abilities should the ideal student participant demonstrate? Third, how will students be able to demonstrate what they learned? And fourth, how does this program and outcome fit within the division student learning outcomes? So that's a lot, but it's important to keep these in mind when writing a measurable objective. So why are student learning outcomes important? As teachers, we're always monitoring the progress of our students. And so student learning outcomes, they help teachers determine how to increase student learning. They help provide feedback to teachers, and it shows what the student learned by showcasing their knowledge. And this provides guidance for a course or lesson when teachers go back to then edit the lesson for the future.